Well, I'm originally from a town about an hour southeast of San Antonio called Karn City. I decided to come to Tech just because, I came and visited the university, I applied, I got in, I just, fell in love with the campus and with the city. I decided to run for city council because, you look around with local politics and you see there's not really a whole lot of student representation within city government. Even the representatives that are elected for the district, which make up the Tech campus, the representative for that district is not really someone who's like connected with students. You don't see students involved in local government at all. And so what we're trying to do with this campaign is trying to bridge the gap between students and the rest of the Lubbock community, because students are just as big a part of the city as everyone else is. So we really want to engage the students and engage the whole city and make sure that everybody's represented fairly on the city council. A few of the initiatives we're looking at are making sure that parking violations are not parking violations, but essentially that parking codes are amended, and parking violations aren't so harsh and so frequent. We want to make sure that students, because this affects students directly all the time, is that a lot of the time around the city there might not be an adequate amount of signs, or not an adequate amount of knowledge that goes around about where students can and cannot park. And these students are just fined all kinds of money, like $300 essentially to get towed, and we think that's a real shame. We think we should take a hard look at how these are enforced and how well students and just people around the city in general know about them, so that people aren't getting people basically aren't getting murdered when they get towed. Another thing we're looking at is amending what's sort of, I guess, affectionately known as the brothel amendment, or the brothel ordinance. It's basically the ordinance. It was an ordinance created in the 50s by the city council that essentially, doesn't permit more than two people who aren't related living in the same space. And this was really used as a way to target the Greek community. You hear this a lot from Greek organizations on campus, that it's a shame that Greek students can't live in their fraternity or the sorority houses. So we're looking to get that changed, not specifically for the whole city, but just for these campus organizations, to make life easier for them, so they're not pouring all this money into these houses that they can barely use. So we're trying to make life easier for them as well. District 1 is it's not as well off as a lot of the other districts in the city, and they deal with a lot of just a lot of day-to-day problems, like sometimes there aren't enough lights on the streets. Another big problem within District 1 that a lot of people have told us about is that city ordinances aren't enforced equally. So there will be someone who maybe hasn't cut their grass in a couple of weeks just because they haven't had time because they work so much. If your neighbor or somebody calls and complains about you, the city will fine you and essentially make you do their bidding. But there will be people all around who haven't gotten complaints that don't have to do this, and so we want to make sure that if these things, we want to make sure that these are enforced equally and fairly, so that people aren't just taking unfair treatment from the city. I personally feel like I understand what it is to not be a student. Because of financial reasons, I wasn't able to take classes this semester, and so this whole part of the year I've just essentially been working like a madman trying to keep myself afloat, and so I feel like I really understand the struggle of just ordinary working people, because that is my life. I'm a student, but I'm also one of them, so I think I really understand both sides of the district, the student and the non-students, because I essentially straddle the line as both of those. For me, it's not about starting some kind of political career, or trying to get money, or just get a title. To me, it's about serving the community. It's not about any of those other things. I don't want to be elected to office and just be known as a city councilman. I want to be known as a member of the community, as a servant of the community. That's really all I want. As long as I approach the job with care, with courage, with integrity, there's nothing that differentiates me from any other candidate.